Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's show of This Not That. I'm Elisa Connor and I own Elisa Connor Consulting, and I help you pan the gold mine of your existing leads to generate more revenue, more referrals, and retain more clients. So this week we are talking specifically about how to get more sales from your existing leads. Now, if you are like most people, last week I posted an image of a hamster on a hamster wheel, and that's how most of us feel about lead generation. And so instead of focusing our energy on always generating new leads, we have a gold mine of people that will actually be interested in purchasing from us. They're just not ready yet. And so I love to add that word yet to the end of sentences because it creates possibility. And so if you are tired of endlessly chasing leads that don't purchase, I have a little stat for you. And you may have heard this or you may have not, but it's always a good reminder. 97% of people that come into contact with your brand will not be ready to buy. 97%. So that means you have the opportunity to sell to 3%. And if you're looking at the general conversion rate, only 10% of the 3% will buy. And so you're basically down to one person, if that. And so why spend so much time and energy focusing on that 3% when we have this landmine, there's gold mine over here of 97% of people. And so I wanted to create this series to give you some insight and some ideas about how to talk to and continue the sales journey for that 97%. And so if you missed last week's episode, which was part one of the series, my co-host Anka Herman was here with me, and we talked about how to increase connection and how to stay in front of those people in a way that is of value to them and gets them interested in continuing to learn about you, learn about your brand, and learn about what you can possibly do for them in the future or who they could refer you to in the future. So today, I wanted to give you some tips on how to utilize that 97% of people to gather intel and to create awareness around things that they are already talking and thinking about. And so what does that look like? A lot of times, and perhaps you've been privy to this specific tactic, but with email marketing, you have a lot of opportunity to stay in front of people. That's one of the main mechanisms I recommend, and people do not take full advantage of this. They usually just email when they want to sell something. But you can use your email platform and get in front of your list and get in front of those people that you are wanting to connect with and asking them for their intel. And so this does several things for you. The first is you can ask them questions about the pain points they're experiencing. So let's just use a simple example. Like say you're a company there's a company out there that they're called Earth Breeze, and they they're kind of like, they look like dryer sheets, but they're actually laundry detergent, and they're all like earth friendly, don't hurt the environment. It's a really great concept. And so something they could put in their email marketing is like, what's the most annoying thing about your current laundry detergent choice? And you could put things in there like A, B, C, D. And then you can have things be like, the container's hard to dispose of. It leaves blue marks everywhere. It connects, it clogs up the laundry room because the bottle's too big, all those different things. And they could click on those things. Hey, my co-host is here. I'm going to let her in. She was running a little behind. Hello, Anka. We got
Hello.
And so I was just talking about ways to utilize your current leads and your list, your email list specifically, to gather additional information that could move people forward into wanting to purchase from you in the future. And so I was given the example of giving people the choice to opt into a specific problem. And I was talking about, like, I use the example of laundry detergent, and there's a company out there called Earth Breeze. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Earth Breeze basically has a laundry detergent that looks like a dryer sheet, and it's earth friendly. It dissolves within the washer. And I said, so one of the things they could talk about is like, hey, what are the biggest pain points of your current laundry detergent? The container's too big. It turns everything blue. The laundry room is packed, like all these different things. And you could have those as choices in your email. And then when they click on those things, you're going to know what the overwhelming issue is that most of your audience is experiencing. And that gives you the opportunity to go out and create content. And also, the most powerful piece of this is it gives you the ability to tag those people as having that problem. So when you create a solution, or you can put your solution in alignment with that problem, you can go directly to those people and know that they'll be interested in that content. So thank you for hopping in. I knew you had a call for this.
Yeah, no, sorry for popping in late, but always happy to be here.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't think your mic is working. I can't hear you.
Oh, hang on. Oh, that's wait.
Pretty quiet.
Okay. I was just on Zoom and that was okay.
I don't think it's connected to is it connected?
Yeah, it was a second ago. Hang on.
Let's see here. I don't think if you can go in, can you go into the settings for yourself in the StreamYard app?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure it has the right microphone connect.
Yeah, it does.
So while she's working on that, I'm going to keep going. We will figure out that.
That's it.
There we go.
Okay. I just sort of, it said the automatically adjust volume, and I just turned it off. So.
Yeah, it's still a little bit quiet, but if you guys can hear her, great. Put a heart or something in the chat so we know you can hear us. Sometimes we have technical issues. It's just how it goes. And so, one of the best benefits of having all these people that have opted in and said, hey, I'm interested, even if they're not ready to buy, is that you can then go to them and often learn so much valuable information and gather things that you may not have even known were a problem. And so a lot of times when I send an email out, my call to action is like hit respond with, what's going on with you? What's your biggest hiccup right now? What's like, how do you feel about the specific problem? And it is always surprising and kind of astonishing to me that so many people respond. Have you had that same experience, Anka?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always find I take every opportunity I have to encourage people to respond, or every time I host an event, right? I always plug in a few questions, right? And one of the ones that I really love asking, whatever the event is, like, what's one thing you'd most love to learn about, whatever we're talking about. And that's always really, really helpful, because I think if you can get people to tell you what's going on for them, everything after that will be so much easier.
Yeah. And people love to talk about themselves and their problems. And so where marketing usually goes wrong is when the marketer or the company continues to talk about themselves and their solutions versus what the customer actually needs, wants to hear, or is looking for. And you see it like there's so many times it goes wrong. Like I don't love to watch TV, but I love to watch commercials because they kind of crack me up because they're so off base with what people are looking for, and most of the time. And so I think it's ironic that here you're wanting to sell a service or a product to somebody, and yet you're so out of touch with what they actually are looking for, want, or need. And you can really see this showing up in digital and print advertising right now, because there is a giant shift in the market of buyers. And I say that because we have a giant shift in the way that millennials and Gen X and Gen Z purchase and go about purchasing things compared to our predecessors of baby boomers and even a little bit of Gen X. But the way that millennials and Gen Z specifically go about a purchasing decision is very, very different. And I don't think that the market is, I think they're trying to race to catch up, but they're not there yet. And so it's very interesting from a marketing perspective to sit back and watch that, especially when we know that the more intel you have about people, which is why people don't like Facebook and they don't like social media, is because they've been onto this for years, like collecting as much data and information as they can to deliver the best possible experience to that specific user is exactly what they do. And people don't like that, but it's sort of hilarious to me because we all carry around these cell phones, and guess what this does all day? It's listening to you all day, whether you want it to or not. And depending on which app, you have multiple people listening to you. to deliver the best possible experience. So when you get all up in arms about Facebook collecting your data, just remember if you're carrying around a cell phone, they're collecting it anyway. So anyway, to kind of talk about that research and the information you can gather, do you have any other suggestions for like how you've gathered information for people other than like from events and email? I know social media is a great way to do that. You can have people hit, comment and respond and do polls and that sort of thing. But do you have anything else that's worked specifically well for you?
Well, I'm a big fan of virtually, like literally getting people into a Zoom room, right? And so I think the one I started out when I had my first Facebook group, and I thought, I didn't want to just talk into a vacuum. So I wanted some engagement, and I felt that if people knew each other, they're more likely to engage, which was true. So I started doing these virtual coffee chats like way before Zoom was like a thing. And I found initially people were really shy about them, so there were only a couple of people coming. Then they picked up momentum. Then I had lovely big groups, and then they fizzled out, right? Because there's only so many times you're going to make time for a coffee chat. Mm-hmm. So what I found is people love connecting like that if it has a clear purpose, right? You have to really think about what will make this a good use of people's time, right? So, and it needs to come under that flag of this is going to be valuable. Like this isn't just going to be chitting, chatting and whatever. So whatever, you can get creative on it. But I think when you have people in the room, it's like, oh boy, you can read that room and people will share things that they might not fill in a survey, or they might not bother responding to an email. But when you actually have them in the room, then you can really get to know your audience. So I think going really up close and personal, like as far as that's possible in whatever your environment is, I think that is sort of the shortcut to all of that.
I agree. And there's a couple of things. One, I think there's a sweet spot to the number of people and the type of people that you invite. And I know like you've gotten really quite a bit more strategic about who you invite to those events. It's not just random, this, that, or whatever. You're trying to strategically connect people within that environment. And so if you're doing that as a small business, you may look at if I'm going to create this, or even with possible leads, like what is the overall common ground that those people would share, and then what would be the benefit for them to jump into this group. And then I think the other thing that I found, and I used to do this in person, like back in the day, remember when we'd actually talk to people in real life and not just on Zoom? And created these different networking events, and it always ended up the same. I didn't care if you had 20 people there, 80 or 100 or 200 people. It was always the same. You had these little pods that would create of people that either already knew each other or knew what those people did, or you had the people that would introduce everybody to the people that they thought they would meet. And then you ended up with a pod of like 4 to 6 people, these little pods around the room. That's what I called them because it was sort of hilarious. And then you'd have the floater who would like float between. And I think that the same thing has to happen in an online event, is you have to have that same kind of pre-thought out strategy for who you're going to bring together and how they could collaborate, because otherwise the word gets out. And I can say I just was a part of this a couple of months ago. I had somebody invite me to one of these networking things, and I went because I'm always a fan of like, hey, try it out. And it was so discombobulated, and it was just like, hey, we're all about getting leads and this and that. And I was like, but none of these people would be a good lead generator for my business, but they didn't take the time to determine exactly what I did and how that would work in their organization. And I see those things not being very effective in the future if they aren't thought out and don't have a strategy. And so I think it can be a really powerful experience like you were talking about if the thought and the pre-planning is there ahead of time.
No doubt about it.
The other thing that I was going to mention that just flew out of my head, so go ahead. I knew it was good,
Sorry.
but I didn't write it down.
Yeah, no, but I think that is so true because I've been to events and there was even like lunch club and stuff like that where when it's arbitrary people, then you're just gonna go once, right? So it's just not, I definitely spend a lot of thought and care to curate, to make sure that you bring a group of people together that it makes sense for them. It's not just like if it's only good for me to connect with them, then that's not really that helpful. Like it needs to be valuable. They need to walk away thinking, oh my God, that was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because I met people that are relevant to what I'm doing, right? And so I think it definitely, yeah, makes sense. And I guess I mean, it's funny because like I don't work locally. So for me, like having Zoom is just like this total game changer because it allows me to be location independent. So I really value that.
Yeah.
But, and if you have a bigger group, then, breakout rooms are like your place to go. But I think the more you can create that real connection where people really get to know each other, and yeah. And I think if you could get close to people like that, that will ripple. I mean, it doesn't mean that you walk away with a new client every time you have a meeting like that. You could, but maybe not. But I think the way people perceive you and look at you and remember you as a connector, as somebody that brings people together and brings them something valuable, like that will linger and it'll translate into introductions and referrals and no doubt about it.
Right. I remembered, but I also had something else I was going to add. Um, so it sounds like a lot of work. And sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have time for that. And I just wanted to point out that the first one, two, three of them will be work. And then it's the people in the group are going to help you identify future people to invite to the group. And so, because it becomes clearer every time that you host the group, if you put the time and forethought into it to begin with. And so, it's a little bit more work at the beginning, but once you get the right people in the room, then those people know the right people to bring to the room. And so, it becomes less effort over time. And then it just expands as you go. And then, you've probably heard the statement, I'm sure you have, is that marketing is really just an exercise in memorization. And so when you say that, the people that are in that room may not become a client, you're training them to memorize who you are and what you do so that when they're out in the world, they know how to talk about you and know how to refer you and know how to bring new people into the room that could become a client. And so I think that's a really important thing that you pointed out. But when you think about when you're creating marketing and you're creating an opportunity to get in front of new leads and even people that have already come into the circle, you're just training them again and again to remember who you are, what you do, and how you help. And if we can do that in any of our relationship building practices, the opportunity for us to convert people gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, the one thing that I forgot that now I remember is that I think the key to any of these tactics and techniques is really learning how to be a good listener. And most of us get so excited to talk and we have so many things to talk about that we don't know how to listen. We don't know how to actually tune in and hear what the other person is saying. And we go to these groups and we're ready to talk about ourselves. Like I remember this when I first started networking. Tell me if this was you or if it was just me. But I would spend like the whole time until it was my turn to talk, trying to figure out what I was going to say about what I do. And then I missed like what everybody else was like. I was only half listening. And I think most people do that. And so when you become the person in the room who is tuned in to what those people in the room are saying, you automatically stand out. And it doesn't really
Yes.
matter what you say.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And people will remember you because everybody remembers, having that lovely connected feeling when somebody actually pays attention. And actually, to what you said before, I think I would really want to emphasize that idea of teaching people and training people to like remember what you do, and like literally you can really take that quite literal, because I know some master networkers, and they have a networking one sheet that they hand out to people, where they say, okay, this is what I do, this is who I'm looking for, this is how I would like you to introduce me to somebody. Like literally, not just like, give them the opportunity to remember, but to actually give them instructions, right?
Yeah.
And then to say, and I'm in a group where there is a whole video that the host is has put together, where he says, well, okay, this is who we're looking for. This is how you identify a good candidate for this community, right? And there's really clearly spelled out, this is what you're looking for, and this is what you can say. So the easier to make that for people, the easier that becomes.
Exactly. And then they remember that. Because even if they aren't going to be a good fit for the group, you never know when that could come up in a conversation that then could be a referral for somebody else, not only to the group, but as a client or whatever that is. And I think people really struggle with what that is. And there's so much information out there about how to come up with your ideal client avatar and all this stuff. But the reality of it is you have to sit down and do the work. You have to sit down and figure out who it is you help, and more importantly, how you help them and how that's different than other people out there. And I would love to tell you that's super easy, but there are big companies that struggle with this. Like I go and look at websites regularly as part of my job to do, an analysis of what's going on. I'm like, well, it's no wonder. Like nobody knows what you do or who you're helping, or it's so confusing because they're throwing away around industry terms that people don't understand, or they have way too many things for people to choose from. And it can be really convoluted, and our brains are very simple. Like the more things you want your customer to do, the less likely they will do them. And so when you give them one option, one
Yeah.
choice, and then that can lead to something else, it's much easier for them to go yes or no. Either answer is acceptable, because if it's a no, that can mean no, not right now, or it can mean we're not a good fit. And either way, that makes space for more yes. And so when we're thinking about that, whether we're following up with previous leads or new leads, either way, it's the same identifiers. Is like when they come to your website, is it super clear about what you do and how you help? So anything you want to add about like continuing that relationship with people that we've already connected with?
Well, I think, probably nothing groundbreaking new. I think they are your very best source of everything, basically. Because I think at the end of the day, I always find, especially in the online world, the more things are online, trust, it always comes down to trust, right? And the people who are already in your world, they already trust you to an extent, So, and I think everything gets easier. So the best thing you can do is to nurture those relationships and like really value them for what they are. And I always find like being generous in that space, in that sense, is, I think I always find people get themselves into a lot of trouble as I want to be, I want to be very careful and very purposeful. Like I only want to do things that bring results, and I'm like, well, who are you to know what exactly that will be, right? So I think in the space of connection, you want to be, a bit generous, because I actually, somebody had on their calendar, there was like a beautiful saying, I don't remember it exactly, but it was like your next great opportunity. And like, you never know what brilliant opportunity lies behind the next connection, right?
Yeah.
So I think to stay close to the people that you've already started to build a relationship, rather than running out and try and find new people to connect with, I think that is your fastest way to get somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people think one and done connection. Like I've had one email with them, then it's done. They trust me, and that's not how it works. So I just want to clarify. having metrics around your business and around your marketing is very, very important. But when you're talking about building relationships, those metrics are not going to be the same as you measuring a marketing tactic. So those are very, very different. And I think that's what you were trying to say, but I just wanted to clarify that because you do want to have metrics around things that you are
Yeah.
investing time and money into. And then one thing that we didn't talk about, which was just totally like, I think I'm on Christmas overload brain, is how valuable it can be to elicit information from people that have already bought from you. Because what that can do is help you create your next product offering or your next event or your next mastermind or whatever that might be in your business. Because as they're going through the program, as you brilliantly said last week, and I think you might have borrowed this from someone, is that knowing that customer journey map is like they're here right now and they're working with me right now to solve this problem. Well, that's only going to create this problem. And if you don't have somebody that solves that problem, you can be the genius who creates a solution for this problem.
Yeah.
And so there's the best way to know what that problem is and to test out your theory and to test out your new product offer is with people who already trust you. And so I just wanted to pop that in there as that's another opportunity for those relationships. And oftentimes I've seen where that second product offering not only applies to the people that have already bought, but to these people over here who said no to the initial offer. And so think about that prior to just tossing aside. I always call them the 97%, tossing aside the 97% that you've worked so hard and spent so much time and money on, bringing into your circle, and because they could be an even higher priced client without you even knowing it.
And actually, even, I mean, that reminded me, like, existing clients can also help you sell your existing offer better, right? Because I always love doing feedback calls, like when I run a program. So I get people in a Zoom room. It's like, okay. And one of the questions that I love asking is, okay, when you looked at the page, like, what was the bit that made you buy? When you looked at all the things, like there's this and there's that, and this is the problem it solves, and blah, blah, blah. Like, at what point did you go, ooh, I'm in? It's fascinating, right? Because you'll find you start discovering patterns, right? And if you find most people, well, actually, this is the part that really brought me in, then you're gonna make sure you're not gonna forget to mention that next time you speak to somebody who's interested in it, right? So I think it helps you in so many different ways that it's definitely something you don't want to ignore.
Yes. And definitely everybody has different parts of their brain that are triggered through the buying process. So you will see patterns, and you will also see, it gives you the opportunity to really hone in and make sure that those pieces that people are really looking at are the best they can be. And I think that is kind of a misnomer with our marketing, is we think, oh, it's done. It's never done. Your website's never done. Your email series are never done. Like, just get in the mode of it's never done, because you will always have to tweak it. You will always have to update it. You will always have to change it to meet where your audience is. Does that mean you have to revamp? You have to redo the entire thing? No. But you will always be wanting to make little tweaks and adjustments to improve the performance and optimize it. And so that was a really, really good point, because you can take that information and you can make sure that it's working the best that it can work.
And I think that it's never done. People, when they're first, I usually, I often say that, and people, like, the first reaction is like, oh boy, I thought I was finally having this, but then when you actually are like, when you look at it closer, it's actually really good news, because it means whatever you do now doesn't have to be perfect. So you don't have to overthink it. It just has to be the most appropriate or the best you can come up with right now, right? And I think it takes a lot of that perfectionism off the table and allows you to get something out rather than overthink it.
Exactly. I always compare it to like taking care of your car. You're not going to buy a car and drive it forever and never change the oil, never get new windshield washer fluid, never put new windshield wipers on it. Like, you have to continue to take care of it and to nurture it and to, adjust it. You might get a new radio, you might get seat covers, you might, whatever it might be, but you're going to always have to do something to your vehicle. And it's the same thing with anything that you're creating in your business. Like, you have to monitor it and kind of tweak it and fix it and make it look pretty and make sure that it has the right words, make sure that it's, engaging with people. And so, yeah, I love that you mentioned the relief of being perfection, because there is no perfect, and done is better than perfect, and it will never be done. So anyway, so thank you so much for tuning in today. We would love to know which of these tidbits you're going to apply to your business. Let us know in the comments. And thank you, Anka, for being here again and for joining us and giving us your time. And we will be back next week with part 3 of the series, and it will likely be our last video of the year, because we're rounding out the end of the year. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Take care.
See you next week.